So there are some nuances there, right? When the opposition stands up and yells, "Did you really give $10 million to a strip club?" That's not technically true. They didn't give $10 million to a strip club. $10 million flowed before the strip club was open to a guy who has since opened a strip club in the same place, the same owner, crossover, etc. And it has money flowing this year with a new agreement under the SDF. But they have said they had not used that to directly train employees for the SDF, and they have not trained strippers, and they have not trained the people who hang from the ceiling from hoops in their hair, things they hold in their teeth. But there's this thing here. It all came about because we've been doing a ton of reporting on the Skills Development Fund. We found it hasn't been very transparent about how this money has been spent, by whom, to what ends. Has it actually trained people for what the government has said? You know, if you listen to what they like to say about the Skills Development Fund, it's largely about the skilled trades and how they're the government standing up for the skilled trades. We just felt this story showed that there's more to it than that. No, nothing against the, being a stripper or a burlesque dancer, but it's not what the government has been sort of portraying this whole thing as.
So when the opposition does stand up and say, and I think the way John Fraser phrased it was that the government has given money to the owner of a strip club.
They've given it to a nonprofit that uses it to train workers for the owner.
So there is some distance between the
I should just add, in some cases, according to government records that we have, it's not just the training at this same venue, but it's shift work as well. So, it's there are workers working for these businesses at the location that the burlesque themed club, strip club, however we put it, is, who are paid by this fund. That is fact, but is $10 million being used in that way? No.
And here's the danger, and I think in some of this, I mean, it's fun to have the salacious, we talk about the unusual phrases that come up in Hansard and so on. But I think to your point, Jessica, the idea that the point here is the connectivity to the Tories, who's getting the money for what reason and what's the outcome, and the minister is very good at explaining the process, but we're not seeing a lot of there around the outcome based on the reporting I'm seeing from you guys.
Yeah, I think you can wonder whether this is the best use of money, whether this was the best recipient of the money. Why did this nonprofit with no history until it got this money deserve it for this particular club, for this guy who's been in the orbit of the premier and others for a long time? And the story that we just did also included how that venue and his company was the host of a series of PC fundraisers around the time that the money was first awarded. And then later on, it hosted the PC's campaign manager's wedding. And maybe it was also the guy who runs the lobbying firm that both the guy, Zlatko Starkovsky's company, and the nonprofit hired. There are connections there.
Yeah, and I guess somebody's going to suggest then, Charlie, that it's not unusual. This is a sort of a network of conservatives. They're going to hang around with each other, so it's not unusual that they would do business with one another.
Yeah, that's the nature of I guess the world we live in. This is not the lone example. There are many examples in the latest round of funding. We did a story about, a few weeks ago, on how of the 250-ish recipients of something like $345 million from the Skills Development Fund, that over half of the individual grants themselves and almost 2/3 of the funding went to, folks with some sort of donor history or some sort of connection to the PC party. So, those sort of figures are what jumped out to us. That's why we did that reporting. And on that, the flip side of that, something that the labor minister has been doing, not so much this week, but in recent weeks, as this has come up day and day again, is, clearly research that folks in the government have done, saying, oh, well, we gave money to this recipient and their, one of their directors was a liberal candidate, or they donated this much to the NDP. To that, I think the fair argument is, well, those in opposition aren't the ones making these decisions.